Hey, Texas Values friends. Jonathan Sines here, president of Texas Values. This might be our last podcast and Facebook Live interview of the day, but there are more to come tomorrow. And if you missed some of the ones earlier, we had an interview with Tony Perkins, and he said some pretty cool stuff about Trump, President Trump. So you might want to check that. That's getting posted soon. Started the day with somebody else from FRC and really made the rounds with some great speakers. So we got a great one here, too. And this might be her first time on the podcast with me, even though she spoke at our event last year in September, close to the same time around. So Sophia Lorey is the outreach director for California Family Council, which is basically the California version of Texas Values. They're part of the Family Policy Council Network, and we're at an event that really celebrates and brings attention to those organizations. And that guy's name is Jonathan, too, okay? But he's in California. I do think I have my koozie that says, "Don't California my Texas Values." I'm going to make sure I give to him before I leave. But that's another day, another topic. Sophia, you have been doing great work. By the way, welcome. I'll let you speak.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yes.
And I actually have one of those koozies from the event in September. And when I bring it out in California, a lot of the Californians they agree with it. Don't like California my Texas. They're like, yeah, don't mess up Texas. Leave it alone.
That's right. Well, look, and I know that in that state, and that's where you're from, right? Born and raised there. You know, there are people that have left, and they're like, I've had it, but I'm sort of one of those people that are like, you know what, stay, right? I mean, if you got some connection, maybe we can turn things around there. And there were times where California, with Reagan and maybe even Schwarzenegger or some other circumstances, where there was good leadership there. But you're in some pretty big fights right now that are obviously common sense. But tell us a little bit about California Family Council, and people will be familiar with it because of our organization. But tell us a little bit about the group and why it's somewhere you chose to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's very similar to what you guys are doing. And at California Family Council, it's our goal to stand for life, family, and liberty across the churches, the Capitol, and the culture of the whole state. And so we definitely see a lot of pushback on our values from the state capitol, but yet we see a lot of support from the people living there. Like you said, California is not as far gone as people like to think it is. We actually saw in the 2020 election, more Californians voted red than there is even population of 30 of the states.
Wow.
And then we saw it turn more red in the past election. And so there are people there with conservative values, with Christian values that are standing up. And I think the thing is they're so done with the leadership that they're ready to get engaged. They get engaged with us. We go to the Capitol. We're testifying on bills. Because unfortunately, we are seeing the erasure of the nuclear family. We're seeing the attack on women's rights in the state of California. We're seeing a huge attack on children, on parents' rights. And so we're working together to stand up for that and to hopefully get a little more like Texas.
Yeah, well, look, sometimes those issues can take time, but you can find some sweet spot where you realize, wow, the other side agrees with us, and that might not be a bad thing. And then you might start flipping seats. Even in Texas and some parts of the state that are historically Democratic are starting to shift, and it is still Texas, but still, some of those, one of them had not voted for a Republican president in over 100 years, predominantly Hispanic area. And so I'm sure that had something to do with that, with a lot of family values in those areas. But there can be hope. So you've been working on some important issues that I know are personal to you that have been a part of some of the work that we've done on the Save Women's Sports issue. And if there's issue that could win and that could create some momentum in a state like California where sports is pretty important, a lot of big universities and so on, I think this could be one. But let's talk about some of your conflicts, okay? So, because I was trying to remember myself. So you got kicked out of a couple of places. Tell us, what was it, the library? What happened when you were giving a speech?
Yeah, so I was at a library in Davis, California, and this is one of the most blue cities, counties in the state of California. Was there for the simple message of protecting girls in sports. And go to this library. We had the room booked out for this event, expecting there to be like 20, 30 local parents there just to learn about what's going on. And instead, the room filled up with protesters. Wow. There was trans flags all around. People brought their children and put paint saying pride up and down their arms. And
it's a hostile takeover.
Very hostile takeover. And so I thought, yes. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to let everyone know, remain quiet. We'll take questions at the end. Let's just get through all the speakers. And I kicked it off, shared my story about being a college athlete, and said, I hope that 10-year-old girls now can accomplish the same dreams that I had at 10 to be a college athlete. But they can't, because males are in female sports. And the crowd, it just got rowdy. They started getting mad. You're misgendering. You're misgendering.
Misgendering? What
yes,
does that mean?
I'm like,
So
interesting. And so I just continue on, and the librarian starts to say, if you continue to misgender, we'll have to remove you from the event. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to continue to say male and female sports because that's not misgendering. That's what
science.
Is happening. It's science. It's biological truth. And eventually he shut down the event, kicked me out. And because it was a county library, he's a government official. And so we were able to sue on the First Amendment right.
Wow. Well, you sued a library. I kind of close to that. I sued my university when I was a law student for my pro-life group. But, you don't always make a lot of friends that way. Maybe not some of the right friends. I mean, you're not too worried about them. But that can be a little nerve-wracking. What was it like for you to realize, now you're in the middle of this lawsuit? And, I think the law was on your side, but I always have to contemplate what happens if we lose.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I was looking at it like you said, what happens if we lose? But it was such a clear violation of the First Amendment right. And I wanted to make sure people recognized the ones that didn't agree with me, that I was also standing up for their First Amendment right.
That's right.
I wanted to make sure we all get to talk about things because we can't grow as a nation. We can't grow as a state if we're not having these conversations about policy, about what's happening in the political world. And so I tried to tell the other people too, the people that were there against me, I was making sure they would maybe hear in media interviews and articles and blog posts that me standing up for this is standing up for you too, so you have the right to speak. And so I felt confident we were on the right side. It was a very clear violation, and my attorney team thought the same. And so it was, shockingly, for being in California and the courts in California, it ended up being a pretty easy win.
That's great. Well, look, and I mean, other people notice that, right? When that happens, it can create some momentum. But it's interesting because the left talks a lot about tolerance, and this obviously is not, right? They want to shut us down. They don't want to allow us to sort of be in this marketplace of ideas, which is such an American concept and principle. But I think a lot of it is fear, because this issue is something that's not hard for people to understand. And we're starting to get a lot of momentum with people like Riley Gaines and others who I know, was locked into a room out in California, a year or so ago, and faced some of those things. But you've recently upped the ante and got the president involved with the California Interscholastic Federation. Tell us about that situation and what's been happening.
Yeah, so the California Interscholastic Federation, CIF, that's who oversees all high school sports in the state of California. They have had a policy in place since 2013 saying they will allow boys to be in girls' locker rooms, restrooms, and sports teams. Since 2013, they've allowed this. And, of course, we didn't see it happen until recently when we saw the attack on children and sex education and all of that. And then we started seeing children go through this trans ideology. And we've tried to bring noise to it for the past 2 years. We've been going to the CIF meetings, letting them know that they are hurting girls. They're taking away opportunities, putting them at risk of being injured. And they've kind of ignored us. They let us speak, and then that's it. They weren't making changes. And then we saw it start to really happen. We've seen now about 12 to 13 different male athletes in female high school sports across the state of California. And those are just the ones we know of, because no one has to track it.
No, look, we know that there's so many more because a lot of people are afraid to come forward and speak about it. But I think I saw you on Fox News.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Yeah.
That's a big platform.
Yes, yeah. So because of speaking out on this, going to these events, and we were just trying to bring attention to the girls being attacked. And so we went to one of the meets where a boy was competing. He was taking over 3 different track and field events for female athletes. I eventually got kicked out of that event as well, and so then went on Fox News to share about the issue in California, to share about being kicked out. And we told CIF back in February, I said at their meeting, if you guys don't change this, we'll make sure the nation knows your name. And now Trump and the DOJ is calling them out.
Were they watching Fox News? I figured y'all may know somebody. But the Trump administration decides they're going to get involved, and they sent a letter over?
Yeah, they originally sent over a letter to CIF, to the California Department of Ed, saying, hey, you guys, we have found through our Title IX investigation, because we've been reaching out to them, we've been saying, here's the different instances that California's been violating Title IX.
And you were like, hey, there's a new sheriff in town.
Yes, exactly. I was like, we have someone on our side now. Right. And so sent it over, and they decided to do an investigation. One that we knew they would figure out California was violating Title IX. It was very evident. So California got this letter, even quoting Governor Newsom in it, where he said he told Charlie Kirk that it's deeply unfair what's happening.
Yeah, I saw that.
But he allows it to continue to happen. So now we get to use his own words against him.
Yeah.
California gets this letter from the U.S. Department of Ed, basically saying, you're violating Title IX. Here's the different instances that we have records of. You have 10 days to get on board. We're giving you 10 days to do what's right. And again, they're not
What was the or? Were they going to remove some funding?
Yes, it was 10 days, or the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is going to get involved, and you'll see a lawsuit happen. Yes,
it's going to really get serious.
Exactly. And if they do decide to pull that federal funding, it's up to billions in the state of California. And so it's going to harm a lot of children. And unfortunately, when people are talking about it, a lot of people are saying, Trump's pulling federal funding from California. The students are going to suffer, all this stuff. But first of all, it's Gavin Newsom and his leadership that's allowing this to happen, because all they have to do is a basic thing we've been doing since Title IX has been put in place. No males in girls' locker rooms and girls' restrooms and girls' sports teams. But California is dying on the hill of wanting to allow male genitalia to be exposed in girls' locker rooms. Yeah. That's the hill they're choosing to die on. But they may.
I'm not saying that in a, like a real way that they may die, but I mean, this is a losing battle. What's the latest on that issue, though?
Yeah, 10 days went by. We saw the California Department of Ed and CIF both responded. They let the Trump administration know that they will not be following Title IX. They will instead be following state law, which again, Title IX supersedes that. Let's go back to 4th, 5th grade history here. And so they said they won't be following it. And then we saw the DOJ sent in a letter, and there's going to be a lawsuit on this situation, which unfortunately in California, it may take the courts to solve this problem.
Well, listen, I don't take joy out of seeing Governor Newsom's face, but he is on a billboard, or was for a while, just south of downtown Austin. Congress is the road that runs right up to the south side of the Texas Capitol, but if you go the other direction, it's called South Congress. Anyway, so on South Congress is a big billboard, but his face is up there because he's trying to convince women in Texas, hey, I'll send you money so you can fly over to California, have your abortion, but he's like, there. And I'm like, enough. But, look, this is an easy issue, though, and the guy's got higher aspirations. So I do sense that it's become a tough call for him. But this is going to be on him if they lose this lawsuit. And who knows if he'll participate and say, hey, maybe I'll need to back off this one. But I think this is going to continue to get more visibility. Like Texas, California, one of the biggest states, the biggest geographically or wherever y'all stand, population. And so, but I think that's also, and I'm not taking away anything that y'all have done, but I think it generates more attention from the national media, and give you a chance to, have more visibility, and I'm sure you'll be ready for that.
Yes, yeah, we want everyone to know what's happening in California. One, so they can choose to stand up in their state now, choose to stand for what's right, because California used to be a good state. Right. People got a little too comfortable, and that's my warning to other states. Don't get comfortable. You can't, in Texas, they can't just say, we're comfortable, we're good. They need to get involved with your fight. They need to get involved with what you guys are doing, because you will become California if people like you guys aren't standing up.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of a special session right now that just started this week when we're trying to get our Texas Women's Privacy Bill. Thankfully, our governor has said he wants to get it done during the special session, but it's got to pass the House first, where we ran into some problems during the regular session. Let me take it back to you, though, a little bit personal. I know you've got a background in history playing collegiate sports in the state of California, and playing soccer. And I don't think you have to be an athlete, Brooke Slusser, Riley, and all this. But I do think it's helped strengthen the argument when athletes who've dealt with it come out and say, hey, this is too much, because I'm sure there are a lot of athletes that are scared to come forward.
Yes, there definitely is, because I've talked to girls that in California that they're not sure if they know it's wrong, but do I want to speak out and maybe lose some friends, face some pressure from kids at school? And they absolutely need to. It makes such a difference when these girls come and speak out about what they've faced, because their stories matter. People need to hear their stories. And I just want to encourage those girls.
Yeah.
It is worth it to lose a couple friends to stand for what's true and for what's right.
Yeah.
And they don't recognize maybe they're here for such a time as this, but those female athletes are. I'm speaking up for them, hoping they'll speak up for my future daughters.
That's
and
right.
so we need everyone to get involved. We need the dads to speak up, the dads of these female athletes that are facing this to speak up, to stand for what's right. I mean, again, luckily I never had to face this, but I saw everything sports brought me and everything I had to sacrifice for them. And I want to make sure that all the current female athletes that want to achieve the collegiate level or just want to go play for fun have that opportunity to do so. I mean, when I was on the soccer field, if I had a bad day at school, if there was something wrong with friends, whatever it was all gone for those 2 hours. And to think some of these girls are now going and scared to change in their locker rooms, scared to get injured, it's beyond
changing in
heartbreaking.
closets because, you know, the way they've been treated. Now I have a 15-year-old daughter, and so it's, I mean, I care about these issues, but the way that, to your point, and I appreciate you saying that, fathers have such an important role, you know, and I take it seriously, and I'm involved in this. Maybe it's easier from that aspect, but it still bothers me personally. And I think about circumstances my daughter might have to be in when she goes into the restroom, and I'm like, I'm outside. It shouldn't have to be that way, but I agree with you. If we have more fathers step up as well, I think that'll add so much value to this issue. So we're going to watch and see what happens with Trump and the DOJ and California Intercollegiate Federation.
Yes.
Is that right? And see what Newsom does. But I think there's a lot of momentum on our side on this issue, and you're a big part of it. So we appreciate you being our guest. Sophia Lorey has been our guest today from California Family Council. She's their outreach director and is a star on the rise, I should say. And I'm sure other people agree. Thanks, Sophia.
Yes, thank
Good
you so
visiting
much.
with you.
Yes.